What's up guys, Jeff from Sorta Healthy here. As you could probably tell from the title, today we're talking about training pregnant clients. This is one of those topics that's covered in your base training certification. You know, your NASM, ACE, NSCA, ACSM, ISSA, etc. certification. That said, I think if you only review that material, you won't be ready to train actual pregnant clients in the field when the time comes. And believe me, the time will probably come. I never had any intentions of training pregnant clients myself, but when one of my best clients became pregnant, I wanted to do everything in my power to keep training that client. This came from a place of still wanting to work with that client, but of course I wanted to keep that income coming in as well. I hate to say it, but if your pregnant client wants training and you're not willing to do it, someone else will be willing to step up to the challenge. So in this video today, we'll be breaking up training pregnant clients by the 3 different trimesters. For each of those trimesters, I'll be telling you what you should and shouldn't do. Before we get into all that, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. This is the best way to support this channel, and this channel is a free resource for all fitness professionals. Thank you so much for that support, everyone. I really do appreciate it. On to the rest of the video. Before we start breaking down the 3 trimesters, we should first ask, is it okay for pregnant women to exercise? The short answer is yes. Pregnant people should be exercising throughout the duration of their pregnancy. That said, this will look slightly different for everyone. Up until somewhat recently, exercise guidelines and recommendations during pregnancy have been somewhat vague and unclear. Many women were told to take it easy or not lift anything more than a couple of pounds during pregnancy so that there would be no harm to the developing fetus. Over time, though, studies have shown that if a mother is exercising consistently while she's pregnant, there will be some benefits to, of course, the mother herself and the developing baby. While we'll get deeper into some of the benefits later, healthy weight management, improved mobility and flexibility, less anxiety, lower rates of pregnancy-induced complications, well, all of those things are some of the benefits of exercising while pregnant. Another question to ask before delving into everything is, are there pregnant women who would be better off not exercising or not doing personal training? Again, the short answer here is yes. Before engaging in any exercise program, a pregnant person should always confirm with their doctor whether or not they are clear to work out. Factors such as advanced maternal age, high blood pressure, abnormal bleeding, and any other high-risk factors should be discussed with a doctor prior to engaging in any exercise, and exercise should be put temporarily on hold should any abnormalities begin. Overall, one of the most important factors in exercising while pregnant is whether or not the expecting person worked out prior to pregnancy. Intensity of exercise and prescription of movements, reps, and sets should primarily be based on what was being done prior to pregnancy. Someone who is doing heavy resistance training and demanding workouts can continue to train with modified intensity. I mean, it seems like common sense, but someone who wasn't working out intensely, well, they shouldn't just start doing that during pregnancy. So basically, if they weren't doing anything before, start off your training very, very light. Before getting into the main do's and don'ts of training pregnant people, it's important to remember that there are a lot of physical changes during pregnancy to think about. First off, hormonal changes begin pretty much right away in pregnancy. Fast changes in hormones can lead to nausea, fatigue, and other unpleasant symptoms. Oftentimes, it's fair to say that pregnant clients aren't really gonna feel like themselves, and they might not be up for everything that they would normally be up for. I think it's also important to remember that you might be one of the first people to find out about the pregnancy. Clients will often tell you they're pregnant early because they want to ensure their own safety and, of course, the safety of the baby. Really do your best to be understanding of your client's needs. I think early on, it's good to assure your client that any reasonable workout will not cause harm to the baby. That said, it's also good to remind them that they need to listen to their body and let you know if anything feels off. Like I said before, make sure that the client confirms with their doctor that it is safe for them to work out. In addition to the changing hormones that cause nausea and fatigue, relaxin is a hormone that increases during pregnancy. Relaxin really starts to increase around week 6 of pregnancy and typically peaks around week 12. Relaxin is as it sounds, it increases laxity throughout the body. Specifically, the hips, feet, sacroiliac joints, and shoulders generally become more mobile. This can cause pain, discomfort, and hypermobility that your client didn't have before. It's important to ask your clients questions often as you're training them and to keep tabs on their mobility. Another Another important thing to remember is that their center of gravity will change. Increased weight and overall volume on the front of the body will shift the center of gravity up and forward. This can lead to more pressure on the spine, and also it makes it more difficult to balance properly. Now that we've gotten through those important preliminary factors, let's get into actually training people who are pregnant. As mentioned before, I think it's best to break this up by trimester. As you already know, or at least I hope you would if you are considering training pregnant clients, we typically think of a pregnancy as something that's 9 months long. That 9 months is broken into 3 trimesters. The first trimester is week 1 through 12. The second trimester is week 13 to 26. And the last trimester is week 27 to the end. Most women don't know that they are pregnant until around weeks 4 to 6. So you'll generally be unaware through a large part of the first trimester. And that's where we're going to start by diving into our do's and don'ts. In the first trimester, the biggest things you might notice with your client are fatigue, possible sickness, and a change in heart rate. Resting heart rate increases alongside blood volume, stroke volume, and cardiac output. During this first trimester, be empathetic towards your client's needs and be aware that they might change often. Encourage longer rest periods, less taxing exercises, and lots of water. Also encourage your client to eat a snack prior to training. Pregnant women are more likely to have hypoglycemic episodes, especially if they're burning extra calories. Another thing you should do during that first trimester is assess your client's goals for working out during pregnancy. Goals could or should include healthy pregnancy, healthy baby, safe delivery, and being strong enough to carry out activities of living post-delivery. Exercising regularly also leads to better endurance, and better endurance could possibly lead to easier labor. Now that we've talked about some of the do's for that first trimester, it's time to talk about some of the don'ts. The first main don't is to take a client that you've been training for a while and bring down the intensity level of their sessions to nothing. Reducing a client's workout intensity way too much might make them feel like you aren't confident or are nervous to work with them now. Since that isn't the case, or it shouldn't be, maintain similar workouts while your client is in their first trimester, adjusting to their changing daily needs. The second don't in the first trimester is don't start a new type of training. Even though your client might be feeling pretty good, early pregnancy isn't the time to start mixing things up like crazy. Don't start incorporating plyometrics if they've never done them before, and don't jump right into a heavy strength cycle. Once we get to the second trimester, that's where things start to adjust a little more. At this point in the pregnancy, your client might actually be feeling pretty good. This is where many women gain back some energy, are adjusting to their changing body, and have some peace of mind that things are progressing properly. This is also the point where that extra weight gain and size usually becomes more noticeable. At this point, place a focus on exercises that help to maintain neutral alignment, core strength, and balance. This is not the time to try to throw in your favorite crazy core exercise. But that being said, core training is pretty important here. You'll still want clients to do those fundamental exercises and movement patterns during the second trimester. Exercises like goblet squats, farmer's carries, pal-off presses, glute bridges, and pulling exercises with a braced core are all examples of what I'm talking about. Watch for any pain or discomfort during any of these exercises and adjust them as needed. At this point, weights will likely be reduced, but only by a bit. In this second trimester, aim for an RPE, or rating of perceived exertion, of a 6 to 8 on a 1 to 10 scale. So if your client is working out at an RPE of 4 to 6, they're breathing heavily, but they can still hold a short conversation. They're still somewhat comfortable, but things are becoming noticeably more challenging. If we're looking at an RPE of 7 to 8, things are borderline uncomfortable. They are short of breath, but they can still speak a sentence here. You can still push clients pretty hard in the second trimester, but be reasonable and listen to your client. When in doubt, back off on the intensity. As the baby grows, abdominal separation will occur, and it will become more difficult to maintain core engagement. Working on what we call the core canister is also very important. The core canister includes the diaphragm, transverse abdominis, and pelvic floor. These muscles all work together to help with intra-abdominal pressure. Unilateral training can also be utilized here, but definitely assess whether this makes sense for your client. Some movements like lunges, for example, might cause too much pelvic discomfort. Exercises like single single arm dumbbell rows, though, are a great and supported unilateral movement. Pulling movements should be emphasized over pushing, as pregnant women's bodies are pulled forward due to the weight of both the breasts and the baby. Of course, some pushing is still good to include as well. New moms will face challenges where pushing strength is sure to be appreciated. Whether your client is pregnant or not, it's always good to consider what activities of daily living your client is going to be engaging in. New moms are going to be doing a lot of different things going forward. They're going to be hinging to put a baby in a crib, and of course they are going to be squatting up and down, carrying their baby, which is extra weight. So goblet squats and things like that can be extra helpful for preparing your client for what's to come. When we're looking at something like the squat, you may need to encourage a client to squat with a wider stance to accommodate a growing stomach. Now that we've covered the do's of that second trimester, let's move on to the don'ts. Don't program over an RPE of 8 or an 80% of max intensity level. As intensity increases or when it's higher, rest should correlate. Aim for a 1:3 work to rest ratio with higher intensities and a 1:2 or 1:1 with lower intensities. Our next don't focuses more on specific movements. Don't include movements that include excessive spinal flexion, spinal extension, rotation with a disassociation of hips and shoulders, and you shouldn't include advanced core exercises on the back either. This means you should stop doing exercises like crunches or sit-ups. While doing core work, or anything else for that matter, watch for any abdominal coning and adjust. Abdominal coning indicates extra intra-abdominal pressure, and obviously during pregnancy that's not really something that we want to occur. But anyways, abdominal coning is when someone's core looks like this. Always remind the client to brace their core, but if they can't brace their core without coning, it's time to stop the exercise. While women can still lie on their backs for short periods of time, those are exercises to watch as well. It is safe in the second trimester to lay flat as long as intra-abdominal pressure can be controlled and there is no pain or discomfort. And now we're cruising on into the third and last trimester. And I would say that in this third trimester, things get even more specific to your client's daily needs. At this point, your client has been experiencing many changes. The baby is growing rapidly and the mom's body is adjusting accordingly. At this point, it is appropriate to lower the intensity even a little bit more. More weight, fatigue, and hormones make moving generally harder at this point. In terms of intensity in this third trimester, I like to aim for an RPE of 5 to 7 on a 10 scale. You could even, and probably should even, go lower than that if you're dealing with someone who's still pretty new to working out. This is not the time to focus on 1 rep maxes and getting super strong. Instead, focus on maintaining strength, focus on giving your client adequate rest periods, and those would look similar to what we said before for the second trimester, and focus on maintaining endurance and overall health. Make sure you do watch for any pain or discomfort with movements. During the last trimester, it is more common to see sciatic pain, SI joint pain, pelvic floor issues, and round ligament pain, and round ligament pain is pretty much uterus discomfort. While these things can happen at any point during pregnancy, they are certainly more common in that third trimester. Any sharp sudden pains, discomfort, or any other issues should be discussed and the movement adjusted. Pain and discomfort in the third trimester, along with less restful sleep, more nerves, and other things can cause a lower incentive to exercise. At this stage of the game, a little bit of extra motivation can go a long way. It's also good to remind your client of the benefits that come along with exercising and extra movement, and most important of all, keep being supportive. So all of those don'ts that we talked about in the second trimester, well, of course, all of those would still apply here in the third trimester. Exercise selection does get a little bit more specific in this third trimester. At this point, avoid excess exertion while on the back, avoid front-loaded movements, avoid high-impact movements, and anything that causes abdominal bulging. Always make sure that your client has stable feet and balance before beginning any exercise. Watch your client's breathing and core engagement, and always try to make sure that your client's spine is in proper alignment. Changing standing exercises to seated and providing assistance plus support in unilateral movements and lightening loads can all help your client to feel more balanced and supported during movements. Our last don't for today, especially in this third trimester, is don't get nervous. Pregnant people aren't sick or injured, they just need to adjust a little bit more as they go. As your client gets closer to birth, make sure to be on alert for any abnormal or new symptoms such as headaches, dizziness, vaginal bleeding, contractions, or anything that is different. Any concerning symptoms like these are where your client should stop exercising and check in with their doctor before continuing. Just as a PS, if there are any new symptoms, it doesn't mean you did anything wrong, unless you did encourage something crazy like jumping on a box. It just means that the client should be checked for preterm labor, preeclampsia, or any other potential conditions that could be impacted by exercise. Before we wrap up for today, I do want to mention that this video shouldn't be the only resource that you use if you are planning on training pregnant women. There are entire courses on this subject, so again, I wouldn't only rely upon this video. That said, training pregnant clients, in my opinion, really isn't too scary once you're doing it. Listen to your client, ask them how they're feeling very often, and then adjust accordingly. Also, when in doubt, reduce the intensity. Having said all of that, do you guys have any questions or comments? If you do, please leave those down below and I will respond to them. That's all that we have for today, everyone. If you haven't done so already, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, because both of those things do help the channel to grow, and that does allow me to create more free content for all of you. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, stay sorta healthy.